Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I just watched the newest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This film was perhaps the worst MCU film in a while, and I'll get into why, but firstly, please consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more film related content. I make reviews, rankings, and I'm open to video suggestions, so feel free to leave some in the comments. Let's get into the review. So, Ant-Man 3 was released last Friday, and I can't say that I was especially interested or enthusiastic about seeing it at all, let alone in the cinema. I unexpectedly had some time off and ended up seeing the film with some friends, which somewhat stopped the experience becoming an absolute waste of time. I wouldn't suggest, however, that anyone watch this film alone, since you will steadily lose the will to live. I actually enjoyed the first two Ant-Man movies, so I thought at least Paul Rudd's character, Scott Lang, will be funny and boost this film a lot. Unfortunately, in this film he isn't anywhere near as humorous or as witty as usual, and even had he been, I don't think it could have saved the film. The movie picks up not long after the events of Endgame and starts rather innocently by showing the day-to-day life of Scott and his family. He and his family's dinner gets interrupted when Cassie shows Scott a new machine that she, Hope, and Hank have built, a contraption that can map the quantum realm, the place where Hank's wife and Hope's mother, Janet, had been stranded for 30 years prior. The machine malfunctions and ends up sucking them all into the quantum realm. This was the first bad choice the writers made on this film, and definitely not the last. This is such a boring way to move the plot along, and not to mention overdone. This is literally the plot of Jumanji, a film made almost 30 years ago, and the writer of this $200 million film couldn't think of anything more imaginative. Anyway, once in the quantum realm, the group discover that there are civilizations there which they didn't know about, and the new big bad villain of the MCU makes his film debut. This character obviously being Kang the Conqueror, of whom we briefly got a look at in the final episode of Loki Season 1. Kang the Conqueror is played pretty well by Jonathan Majors, and is perhaps the only positive aspect of this film in my opinion. The character, as I previously said, had been introduced in Loki Season 1, which, by the way, I hate how you now need to have watched the Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus to be clued into the plots of the movies. This isn't such a bad example because this is a different variant of Kang, but for example, you actually needed to have seen WandaVision to understand the plot of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which was released last year. This is just simply another appalling method of making even more money for one of the biggest film studios in the world. Disney expect you to hold a subscription to watch the Marvel shows, while also encouraging people to spend $20 or more per ticket to watch their awful movies in IMAX at theatres. And if Marvel don't start listening to their fans and create quality content over the production line of rushed and substandard nonsense that we're used to, they're going to lose those fans and continue to decline in reputation. For a film with a $200 million budget, a lot of the visual effects and CGI was disgraceful. Of course, the majority was good. Stuff like the settings, backgrounds and scenery, that all looked fine. But there are some really bad examples which definitely should have been fixed. For example, while the group were being sucked into the quantum realm, they're flying through a sort of vortex, and it's super obvious that they're in front of a green screen because the lighting in the scene doesn't match that of the lighting on the characters at all. While the computer-generated space around them is bright, has flashing colours and lights, the characters themselves have the same dull and studio-like lighting throughout the whole scene. It wouldn't be a Marvel movie these days without a shocking laugh-out-loud CGI example either. In Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, we had Stephen Strange's weird third eye, and in Thor: Love and Thunder, we had some child's strange floating head. This movie isn't an exception to that trend, and we get to see MODOK. This is perhaps the worst example of them all. Remember this guy, Darren Cross, from the first Ant-Man film? Well, it turns out he didn't die, and he's been living in the quantum realm all these years, waiting to exact revenge on Scott. However, he looks a little bit different than before. Take a look at the secondary villain of this movie, MODOK, the mechanized organism designed only for killing. This completely caught me off guard, and I spent the rest of the film in utter disbelief that the team working on this film thought that he looked good and was fit to appear in the movie. During a flashback explaining how Darren Cross became MODOK, they show us his fucking naked body with his butt cheeks and dangly appendages, and it's literally unbelievable. I haven't seen the sequel to Black Panther, which was released last year, since the first film was terrible, and reviews for the new one are bad too, but surely there can't be even more laughable CGI choices than we've already got. As I briefly stated before, the writing is also terrible, and it seems like it's been written by a bunch of children. The humour, as usual these days, is incredibly childish and unfunny. Why can't we have a bit of dry humour or wit which actually makes fans laugh rather than crappy jokes which don't land and leave the fans cringing? I've gotten used to the bad humour in these films by now, however, the lazy and unimaginative writing choices seem to be becoming more and more prevalent. The group are in an alien environment in the film, and the people living in the quantum realm don't speak English, they speak alien languages that the characters can't understand. It would be very convenient if there was just a magic drink that just so happens to allow you to understand everything everyone is saying as if they were speaking English. Well, this is the idea that this genius screenwriter came up with, and it's so lazy and it's very boring. The writer of this film, Jeff Loveness, has nothing interesting in his filmography and seems to have only written material for Jimmy Kimmel Live, the Academy Awards, and the Emmy Awards, which explains why this film is so humorless. Back to Jonathan Majors as Kang. He's obviously a good actor and does fit the role very well. It's just a shame that so many great actors have starred in Marvel films recently, considering the studio's decline. Christian Bale is one of my favourite actors, and I thought he was great in Thor Love and Thunder as Gore the God Butcher. However, the film itself was a complete train wreck. It's not just Christian Bale and Jonathan Majors either. Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen were both awesome in Doctor Strange 2 last year. However, again, the film was awful. Oscar Isaac is another of my favourite actors and did a good job in Moon Knight alongside Ethan Hawke. However, despite employing great actors, these Marvel productions still completely flop and gather negative reviews. Surely the studio need to realise that their audience isn't happy and is tired of paying to see garbage. It's not like Marvel are incapable of making good films. They've released some bangers over the years. For example, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy starring Tobey Maguire was great, and it got loads of people into comic book movies in the first place. The first Captain America film, Captain America the First Avenger, was good because it had a decent cast, it had a plot which made sense, and a team of writers that knew how to make a coherent movie. In recent years, the film Logan had noticeable style and atmosphere, and felt like a serious thriller which you can invest your attention in. Even the Russo brothers' MCU project encapsulating the Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War and Endgame was at least well written and held the audience's attention completely because it wasn't rushed and it wasn't interfered with anywhere near as much as the newer MCU films have been. Instead of releasing 3 to 4 films and a few TV shows every year, I think Marvel should invest more time and perhaps the excess money into making quality films which get the fans excited again. I don't expect this will ever happen, since unfortunately these movies still make money regardless of their technical competence. That pretty much sums up my thoughts on this movie and the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the moment. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, and you should definitely subscribe if you want to see more content from the channel. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.